Hi class, so this is the document I handed out in class. If you need another copy, I'll put a copy in the Google Classroom with this video. Um, First starting point is our equation. So the function, or y equals a times x minus h, the minus is important, that's the thing that makes everything opposite inside that parentheses, squared plus k. So there's a lot going on with a. A gives us our vertical stretch and compression, as well as the direction it opens. So if A is negative, then the parabola opens downward. So the negative parabola is looking like a sad face. If A is positive, the parabola is going to open upward. And so the parabola is going to look like a happy face because it's positive. And then we have our stretch and compression. So if A, and I'm going to put the absolute value of A because we don't care about the negative or positive when we're looking at the stretch. We care about if it's a number bigger than 1 or if it's a fraction. So if absolute value of A is bigger than 1, we called that a stretch, a vertical stretch. If A is between 0 and 1, in other words, if A is a fraction, we called that a compression. And I'll get to some examples of those and how we plot points when we have stretches and compressions. But the next letter we're going to put a value in for, or have a value for when we're looking at an equation in vertex form, is h. Now, h and k kind of go together. Their goal is to find your vertex. So in this little semi-paragraph thing I put here, it says whatever h says, do the opposite. So inside my parentheses, because I have x minus h, if I see x plus 3, it means left 3 because this minus sign means I should be looking for a minus sign in here. I can rewrite this x plus 3 as x minus negative 3. And now this negative 3 becomes my h. So whatever happens inside the parentheses, this minus sign that we actually expected means we do the opposite. That's where that, negative means right, positive means left thing comes from. K is the vertical. So a pattern I'm hoping you're noticing is anything that happens inside the parentheses affects the horizontal pieces of the parabola. Anything that happens outside the parentheses, so the A and the K here, affect the vertical parts of the parabola. So my K is going to be my vertical translation, and this one makes a little more sense. Positive is up, negative is down. It follows the number line on the y-axis. So the result of this is our vertex is at point H, K. So if H ends up being the opposite, if I have x minus 3, I would put a 3 in here. If I have x plus 3, I would rewrite it like this, and I'd get the negative 3 in there. So let's flip this over and look at a couple of examples. All right. So this is, zoom out a little bit. This is on the back of your sheet, and these are the examples I'm going to work with down here. So as I'm going through these, and I'm going to go, so green, blue, red, purple, orange, that's the order I'm going to go through the examples. You can pause, wait for me, try it yourself, and then watch and see if I do the same thing you did. So I'll start with the green one. Y equals x minus 3 squared minus 3. So in here I have my h and my k. which means my vertex is going to be at point 3, comma, negative 3. So let's find that. So in my graph, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 down. All right, and now let's look at our a value, and we don't have anything in front of the parentheses. So our a value is just 1, which means our parabola is going to do what we expect for an exponential or a quadratic like this. So if a is 1, in a normal quadratic, when I move over 1, when I start with my x squared, so when I have y equals x squared, at 0, 0 squared is 0, but then at 1, 1 squared is 1, and also at negative 1, negative 1 squared is 1. So you can see when I move left or right one spot, I'm going up 1. That's what I expect with a parabola. So that's what I'm going to do here. My next 2 points are going to be over 1, up 1, left 1, up 1. And then the next thing I expect is 2 squared equals 4, negative 2 squared equals 4. So if I'm going to go 2 left and right of my vertex, I should go up 4. So if I go over 2 here, I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, and up there. Over 2 here, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, and up there. So I think that's enough to make the shape of my parabola. So we just did one that had both a horizontal and vertical translation, an h and a k value, but no stretch and it wasn't flipped. All right, so let's look at one where we end up having to change the sign inside the parentheses. That's this blue one down here. So this would actually be like x minus negative 2. The negative 2 is the h value. And then negative 4 is my k value. So here, my vertex is going to look like negative 2, comma, negative 4. And again, a equals 1, so our parabola is going to look just like a normal one, just moved around a little bit. So I'll put my vertex, negative 2, negative 4, left 2, down 4. And then again, it's a normal parabola, so I'm going to follow the same directions I did over here. Over 1, up 1. Over 1, up 1. Over 2, up 4. Right on the origin, over 2, up 4. And draw out my parabola. So this next one, we're going to have a stretch or a compression because I put something out in front of the x squared. Now this time, just to show off what the compression looks like, I didn't move it around so that you can compare it to this original y equals x squared curve that I have here. So my compression, my 1/2 x squared, I'm going to flip over this page and come back here. Now I have 1/2 x squared, which means everything would get multiplied by 1/2. So instead of going over 1, up 1, I'm going over 1, up 1/2. Over 1, up 2. 4 divided by 2 gets me 2. And then if I went 3 squared, I'd be over 3, up 4.5. Because 9 from 3 squared divided by 2 gets me 4.5. So let's start plotting those points. I've got y equals 1/2 x squared. So I'm not going to move left or right at all. I'm going to start right here in the origin. And then I'm going to go over 1, up 1/2. Over 1, up 1/2 on the other side. Over 2, up 2. Over 2, up 2. Over 3, up 4.5. Over 3, up 4.5. And you can see it's not that noticeable. It's actually more noticeable with absolute values. But it spreads out. It gets shorter and wider like we talked about in class. So now you have a regular parabola y equals x squared and 1/2 y equals x squared. That really shows off the compression. So the next one in here, added a little more to it. This is the first negative we're seeing on this sheet. So we're going to have, hold on, I forgot to write a equals 1/2 here. We're going to have an a value. We got something out front, so a equals -2. Now that means a couple of things. We have a stretch of 2. We also have a parabola opening downward. We have a negative, so it's a sad parabola. And then inside here, we have x minus -4. We actually get that -4 as our h value, and we do not have a k value because there's nothing added off over here. So I've got my vertex at -4, 0. It doesn't go up or down at all, so the y coordinate stays 0. And then we'll look at the stretch after we get to our coordinate. So I'm going to start over here, right on top of the blue parabola. And now I'm opening downward, so down this way. So if I flip back over here, I've got 1/2 x squared. I'm going to do the same thing when I have 2, is instead I'm going to multiply by 2. 2 times everything. 2 times 1 squared. 2 times 2 squared. So this, with my purple parabola, is going to be over 1 up 2. Over 2 up 8. Over 3 would be up 18. But I don't think we're going to get that far. All right, so this is our starting point. Over 1 up 2. Over 1 the other way, up 2. Over 2 up 8. Over 2 the other way, up 8. Oh, down. Down, down, down. Negative parabola. There we go. Ignore those dots up there. Here we go, our first downward opening parabola. So I've got one more left, and this mixes almost everything. Is now we've got a equals 3, so we're going to have a stretch. We've got h equals 6. We've got k equals -7. So our vertex is going to be 6, -7. So let's start there. Over 6, down 7, should be right here. And then we're going to open upward, and we'll have multiplying by 3 instead of over 1 up 1, we'll go over 1 up 1, 2, 3. 3 times as high because it's a stretch of 3. Over 1 the other way and up 3. Should open upwards because my a is positive, so I should get a happy parabola. So now over 2 would get me 2 squared is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. So I jump up really high this time. Started at -7, so I should end up at +5. Up 12. Up 12. There. And so now this one's going to get really tall really fast. Alright, so you notice this one's quite a bit skinnier than like the green one over here. That's how the transformations are working. I'm hoping this is a really good guide for you along with the notes we took in class.